Hello, hello, hello. I love these blinding lights. Whenever you come out, you're like, oh, is anybody out there? You are. All right. If you are willing and able, could everybody stand up with me for a moment? Yes. All right. Raise your hands above. Thank you very much. Raise your hands above your head. Yeah. Get them up there. And stretch up. If you want, do a little shift to the side, left, right. If you want to be fancy, lift up your leg, get that movement. Add a little stretch here. Y'all have been sitting for a while, and if I get to stand up, you get to stand up. All right, go ahead and take a seat. And no Simon Says, so you guys can sit down without worrying about it. You can tell I was an athlete. Obviously, I'm always mindful of being able to move and stretch and the rest. It's incredible to be here with you guys tonight. I have definitely been inspired from what I've heard from the speakers who have come out before me, from the panelists to the other keynotes, from the incredible presentations. I hope that you're soaking it all in because there's a lot of amazing work being done, but also just like the vibe, the energy in the room is great. I love being surrounded by passionate people who are really invested in what they're doing. And a lot of what has been talked about tonight, activism, social justice, whatever your issue is that's been highlighted already tonight, we have so many different issues that we're invested in, whatever that is. I feel like it's all centered around just the community, the togetherness, the similarities between us all, and just how integrated all of us are. And I think that's something powerful, that concept of togetherness and building communities and investing in something that's worth investing in is so empowering and powerful, because we know that we will always go further and be better together than we ever will be apart. And that's one of the reasons why I started team sports, actually. Just that feeling of being part of the collective, being part of a team. And that's why I eventually ended up with Team Canada. I've played on many, many sports teams throughout my career, not just basketball, but growing up I played the full gamut of sports. And there's just really something beautiful about playing for something bigger than you. And for me, playing for Team Canada was like the epitome of what you could do in your career. Playing and giving yourself for your country, for a purpose that goes so beyond you, was just a dream for me. But it's also one of those things that when you're expending yourself beyond what you think your possible limits could be, when you're in a situation like that where you're pouring into something worth pouring into, you can always find that extra little something. You can always find that you thought this was your limits and you went a little bit further. And that's the power of the collective. That's the power of community. That's the power of giving to something more and bigger and beautiful. And I think that's what a lot of us here are interested in doing. But that feeling of expending yourself towards something meaningful while exhilarating can also be really tiring, can be overwhelming at times. So when you're passionate about something, there's also a need for certain checks and balances to be put in place, right? Because over the past, is that a fire alarm? Oh, an Amber Alert. So y'all are on your phones, that's what you're telling me. No, I know that that comes through regardless. Okay. Yeah, I love my homies in the back. No, but, so talking about how when you're invested in something as meaningful as that, sometimes it takes a lot out of you. For example, over the past 2 or 3 years, how many of you have felt overwhelmed at one point or another? How many of you have felt anxious? How many of you have felt a little burnt out, maybe? Yeah, I think that was a global sentiment from all of us. And in those kind of environments, we need a sustainable approach. We need a way to be able to show up every day, day in, day out, consistently. And I think about this question a lot in my current line of work because, like was introduced, I work in this space of health and wellness because I know that it's so important to be aligned both physically, mentally, and emotionally. And learning about how to approach how we are approaching things in life in a sustainable way. And for example, when I'm preparing for the Olympics, or my team is preparing for the Olympics, you need a way to sustainably approach working towards your goal because it's spread out over for 4 years. You can't think about that goal way in the future. You need to bring it back to what we're doing in the moment, both on the court and off the court, in the middle of everything and preparing for things. So there are 2 ways that we do that. One is on the team level. How do we work together as a team? How do we have check-in points as a team so that we know what we're working towards and we stay focused and aligned? One of the situations that stands out in my mind as a marker for how you can really show up in big moments and sustainably as a team is when we were qualifying for the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. So I've had the honor of participating in 3 Olympics. My first was London 2012. My second was Rio 2016. And my third was Tokyo 2020. And there's a bit of a process to get. Thank you. Right. Well, thank y'all. I didn't say that for applause, but I really appreciate it. But like, building up to that moment, there's a process, right? Because that's a long time. That's over 12 years of my life dedicated to moving towards each of those Olympics. Because that was my goal, to play for Canada. And I wanted to do it once. Then I was like, okay, that was good, but I think I can do better. So I did it again. I was like, okay, we did good, but I think that we can do even better as a team and collectively and keep moving towards our goals. And if I'm completely honest, I'm like, 3 is a good round number. I feel like 3 sounds better than 2, so let's go for 3 Olympics. But before I even got to that point, we were preparing to qualify because you need to go through a series of tournaments to qualify for the Olympics, and we were in Belgium in February of 2020. And we had to play in this tournament. And so we were prepping as a team, and we were the favorites. And we went into this game against Japan. And Japan, they have a really great basketball team. They are fast. When I tell you that they are quick, like lightning speed. And I'm quick. I'm a quick person. I can run really fast, but the Japanese national team, they're super speedy. So we were mentally preparing for like an exhausting game. Physically, mentally, emotionally, we knew that it was going to be tough. And we were going to have to go into that game really focused as a team. So we trained for this, but in the moment, there were certain checkpoints that we needed to do because we were going in as a collective, right? As a team. And holding each other accountable. So I remember a few different moments in that team. One of my teammates, she was also on our leadership team. She pulled us in on a huddle at one point in the game and called someone out because we were not aligned in our game plan. They're like, okay, we need to get better on a decision making. You need to see this person when she's open, and we need to get the ball to her next. That was checkpoint number 1. I remember a little bit later on in the game, my co-captain, Kim, she called someone else out because they weren't in their defensive rotation. They didn't have someone else's back. Our defense was failing us in that space, and we came together. That was checkpoint number 2. And then a little bit later on in the game, I think this was in the third or fourth quarter, so by this time we were really, really tired. We were running the length of the court at top speeds, but we were really amped up because it was a close game and we knew that we needed to win this game. To be honest, at this point, we had already qualified for the Olympics. This was our last game, but it was more than just qualifying for the Olympics. We knew that we wanted to send a message to the other teams who were watching on TV. We wanted to send a message to all the people at home who are watching and supporting us, and maybe the haters as well, that Canada was here to play. And we were also sending a message to ourselves that even when we were in a situation where we knew that we had already qualified, we had already fulfilled our goal, that we knew we wanted to follow through and do what we needed to do to win, to send that message, and to continue to show up consistently as ourselves in the way that we wanted to show up as a team. And we knew that some of those strategies were from those small, little, habitual, those huddles, that huddle contact point number 1, that huddle contact point number 2, huddle contact point number 3 was with me, also co-captain on the team, when I recognized we were getting really amped up. And you want to be amped up in sports, but there's a certain sweet spot, right? You can't come in too flat, like kind of lazy, because you're not going to get the job done. You can't come in really high and overstimulated, because you're going to miss all your baskets, because your hands are going to be shaking. You need to be in this sweet spot where you're focused in. So that was another contact point that we were able to take advantage of. And I was able to look at my teammates and be like, okay, let's refocus in on the game plan. What's going on? We haven't been doing what we needed to do. We need to bring the arousal level back down. Let's take a breath. Especially in a game that's as high-paced as basketball or a variety of other sports or whatever activities that you do. Sometimes you can get really amped up. Sometimes all it takes is that breathe in. Okay, I can refocus on the objective and check in with the people who are here. And you notice that I mentioned 3 different huddles or 3 different contact points with my teammates. That's on and off the court. Sometimes those huddles are really quick, like within less than 5 seconds, because we have to go back and get on the next play. Sometimes we have a little bit longer time in the timeouts, but they need to happen. And that's part of the prep and part of the sustainable approach to how we even qualify for the Olympics in the first place. A lot of people focus a lot on the game or the basket scored or the block, the flashy stuff. But that's not actually always what wins the game. It's those tiny habits, the strategies, the groundwork that's laid before that makes the difference, that enables us to come together as a team and accomplish our goal. It's the unseen work that enables us to sustainably continue to work towards that together, checking in with each other. So those huddles that we have, you don't see them on the scoreboard, but we track them as the Olympic team because we track all the 1% things that are going to help us perform at a high level. We track them because we film all of our practices, we film all of our games, and we have our statistician, there we go, there's the word, statistician, thank you, keep track of every time we come together and we touch each other. We get a count, and then we're able to see the visual representation of how we're coming together, how we're staying focused, and how that leads towards our goals in that togetherness. Now, we talk about the team and how we show up on the court, but the team is also comprised of a group of individuals, right? And someone earlier gave the great example of a pencil that you can break it if it's alone, and then if you put them as a bundle, it's really hard to break, right? But you need each of those individual pencils to show up in the first place, right? So before we even get to that game, in Belgium that I was talking to you about. There were a sequence of events that we needed to do individually as athletes to show up as a team. Because each of us are equally important to the sum of our parts. So before I even got to that game, before we even prep for practice, you have to do your warm-up. Make sure that your body is ready to go, kind of like what we were doing before I started talking. We stretched a little bit. You need to warm up. Secondly, you need to show up to practice with the right attitude, mentally tuned in, and giving the effort necessary for you to sharpen your skills. After practice, I need to make sure that I'm cooling down, that I allow my body the time to rest and recover. I need to go see the physio if I'm injured to make sure that I'm getting treatment so that I'm taking care of my body. I need to ensure that I'm fueling, that I'm hydrating, because my body is my instrument. If something gets messed up here, I'm not able to perform on the court. I need to get to bed at an appropriate time because rest is 80% of performing the following day. And then on the mental performance side of things, I need to go see my sports psychologist. I need to put in the work to ensure that I'm able to show up in those high pressure moments. So literally practicing how I mentally react in real time. So it's all of those things that come together to feed into how I improve every day, but also how I recover every day. Being really intentional about the habits that I want to do day in and day out. Now those were as a player, and those helped me be the best person and player that I could be to help my team get to the Olympics. And I had a really long career. So I think it paid off in that place, but I think some of those habits are so minute, and sometimes we overlook them. Like I said, they were the groundwork to how we showed up as an athlete and as a player. Now, some of you guys mentioned earlier that you felt maybe a little anxious over the past few years, or a little burnt out, or a little overwhelmed. And a lot of what we've even been talking about and has already been alluded to here today, that sometimes when you're really invested into something that's meaningful, something that you're passionate about, sometimes it can be tiring. Sometimes you can give so much of yourself that you're spent. But an important part of giving into that community and that team, that greater purpose, that meaningful work, is ensuring that you also take care of yourself and show up for yourself every day so that you're pouring from a full cup, so to speak. Now, what are some of those habits, those intentional habits, those high-level habits that allow us to show up? And it's the physical, the mental, emotional, because we're holistic beings. We need all of those to come together, right? Obviously, the physical side, again, because I'm an athlete, I think they are crucial. Actually, I don't think. I know that they are crucial to how you show up, and sometimes we take them for granted. Am I getting enough sleep? Am I eating the right kind of foods that allow my brain to work, that allow me to focus in, that allows me to clear out the fog? Because that actually has an impact to our anxiety levels, our depression levels, how we view things. It starts at the bodily level, right? Also, maybe the way that you're moving. You don't all need to be a high-performance athlete to find something that makes you feel good in your body. It can be walking, it can be running, cycling. There were a lot of different sports already mentioned tonight. But the other part that I think is really important and that I've talked a lot about with the CYC Youth Council as some of the sessions that we do together is the mindfulness aspect of how we're moving through our day and how we're showing up. Because a lot of that overwhelm, that anxiety, that burnout comes from how our mind is feeling. I felt that in moments when I showed up as an athlete and I felt like nothing was clicking, like everything was like busy in my mind, like I was overwhelmed, like I couldn't make connections that normally I could because there wasn't even any space to do that. And sometimes we feel like we're just riding the wave, but that's something that you can actually train yourself to get better at. You can train your mental capacity to get better. You can train your focus to get better. You can train your emotional regulation for you to more easily move through high pressure situations, emotionally intense situations. That allows you to show up in some of those difficult conversations. That allows you to recover better from high intensity or high stress seasons of life. All of those are skills that we can practice. And a lot of it starts with mindfulness. And sometimes that can be a loaded word, like some people think about different things when they think about mindfulness, but really all it is being able to control your attention. If we think of an exercise, if we try to shoot a shot and we've never practiced that form before, when the first time we shoot is in a game, you're probably going to miss it. We need to practice that form, like just start. Just start from the basics, from your feet, all the way up to your elbow, to your wrist, and practice that. And mindfulness is the same thing. How can I expect myself to show up with a level of focus or a level of calm in moments if I've never even practiced that before? That's what mindfulness does for us. Mindfulness, whether doesn't have to be meditation. It can be meditation, it can be prayer, it can be walking outside in nature, just like allowing yourself to stop and pause and clear out some space, put away our phone for a second, allow our mind to calm down a little bit, because it's almost like sleeping. It allows yourself to recover and create a little bit of space. But what else it does is also allows us to start to train our attention, allow us to become aware of what we're even feeling in the first place, so then we can make some appropriate life choices based off of that. Maybe we need a little bit more rest. Maybe we need to disconnect. Maybe we need to connect in with someone who's close to us. But it's all about those 1% improvements, those incremental habits that we can start to apply that allow us to show up as our best selves individually, to come from that place of resourcefulness so that we can then pour into the collective and make that a sustainable approach to how we're making a true impact in the world. I love that reference. I think it was earlier by Lena, who was talking about impact and what that looks like as we come together. It truly is a fist of all of us coming together and ensuring that each of us, when we show up, we're in a really good place so that we know that we really can give the best of ourselves and come together and give the best of us to then make each other and make our communities stronger. So I'd challenge you guys to take a look at what you do on a daily basis. Is it giving you energy? Is it building yourself up? Is it building those around you up? I have a feeling that I'm talking to a lot of people who are really invested in building those around you up. But take a look at what you're doing on a daily basis and whether those habits over time, if they compound, are they going to lead you to where you want to be? Are they going to lead you to having good mental health, good physical health, good emotional health, so that you can show up as your ideal self in those moments when you really want to connect and perform and make an impact? So thank you guys so much for having me today. I know you're going to have a great rest of the evening. Thank you guys.